Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of FinServ Tech Oracles. I'm Johna Johnson, here with my oracular colleague, Jerry Murphy, to share our thoughts on technology for financial services firms. And Jerry, for this episode, you wanted to discuss Sam Altman's drive to give everyone his world coin, Bitcoin, in exchange for every single human being's retina scan. What is up with that?
Well, I mean, basically, there's this company, WorldCoin, which he's, founded, but he's theoretically not an active participant, although he's got significant stock shares. And he's created, there's this technology called an orb, and it's just like it sounds like. It's a little mini globe, it looks like, and it's a retinal scanner. And the whole concept is he's purporting that, hey, to avoid the scary parts of artificial intelligence, what we're going to do is, because you're worried about, computers being smarter than humans and you can't tell whether a computer's human, here's how we'll make sure to tell whether it's a computer or human. We'll scan everybody's retinas with my orb, and in order to entice you to do that, I'm going to pay you money, but I'm not going to pay you actual money. I'm going to pay you my WorldCoin coin, which you'll like because it's going to be worth something someday. And then you don't have to worry about things not being human, because if you say, show me your retina scan, I can prove you're human. And I'm like, first off, in my mind, it sounds like you're solving a problem that doesn't necessarily exist today, but in exchange, in my mind, you're creating an even bigger problem, that you're giving a private company all of this sensitive information that they can use to, track every single person's identity, which to me, I don't know, that sounds more scary than secure, my way of thinking.
Well, aside from the privacy implications of this, I am actually flat out not buying the can prove you're a person, not a computer, because one of the things I would imagine AI is quite good at is creating fake retinal scans. I mean, it's great at creating images. Why wouldn't it just create an image of your retinal scan? How do we know that it is not capable of doing that?
Well, that's a fantastic point that nobody even brings up, but clearly, as fast as computers are, if they can process a retina, can AI create a retina? Looking at samples of a billion retinas, I would think it could probably do that quite easily.
Yeah, I mean, this is Mark 1 Mod 0 AI caliber problem, which is find me bits and pieces of somebody else's fingerprints or retina or whatever, glump them together. How do you prove that's not an actual human? You can't.
Yeah, I mean, that's how AI even creates human images in the first place, right? When you say, Kate, create a picture of an Indian woman riding a bicycle on top of an elephant, right? I mean...
or whatever. Well, okay, let's get back to the privacy issues. I think anybody listening to this is clear that a giant database in the hands of a private company, which is arguably run by a sociopath, is probably not great for humanity. What are governments doing about this?
Well, it's interesting. Governments are actually pushing back on this massively. It's interesting to notice that when they first roll this technology out, they're not rolling it out in the U.S. They haven't touched the U.S. with this at all. They're not rolling it out in Europe. They're rolling it out in countries that just don't have very strong regulations, like Kenya, Nigeria, Argentina, and they're, of course, what it feels like is, I'm going to go to the technological rubes of the world and I'm going to scan all their retinas. By the way, they've already scanned 6 million retinas. And while they say, oh, we're going to erase the retina, so we're not going to have it, it's just going to create an ID that we can, like an NFT, prove it's unique and prove it's a human being. But what you find is these third-party contractors that they've gone to actually use those orbs to scan all those retinas, they're basically telling them, push the people to say, yeah, keep my retina and let me track all your other personal information as well, if you don't mind. And of course they're doing it. Now what you're finding with the governments is they're all massively pushing back. The governor of Kenya has actually done a criminal investigation on this. The government of Nigeria has said, you got to stop doing this. Now Argentina has not. They're starting to do an investigation, but all these places that are doing it, you're getting massive pushback, and they haven't even tried to do this in the U.S. So even though they're trying to do this in third world countries, if you want to say, those governments are pushing back hard.
Well, all I can think of, Jerry, is when you mentioned Nigeria, I was like, oh, great. Those Nigerian prince phishing letters are now going to come with a PDF of their retinal scan. I am really a real human being, see?
Yeah.
Right?
See my princely retina?
Yes, exactly. Oh, my Lord. All right, let's play devil's advocate for 1 second. I mean, I know you and I both think this is outrageous, obnoxious, and crazy. Is there any possible upside to any of this?
Well, I mean, the upside conceptually is I do like this the general concept of saying I'm going to have one identity management place repository that is the place where I'm agreeing that this is the final arbiter of identity. Some part of that is appealing to me because the problem with identity management is, if I got 5,000 different identity databases, you could take on, theoretically, 5,000 different identities. So the fact that if the world could agree that there's a trusted source, it would certainly make integration of different applications, the sharing of information without having to re-enter, passwords and security. There's something that's appealing about that. But the big challenge is, who is it that's going to own this data? Because whoever owns the data is actually going to have a lot of power. And so the question is, do you want that lot of power in the hands of a state government, a federal government, an independent quasi-government entity, or a private company? And I think of those four choices, private company would be the last on my list.
Right, because you have no recourse.
Right.
I have to say, listening to you, you're making a good engineering argument for this, but my mostly dormant libertarian anarchist instincts are bubbling to the top, and I do not want the entire universe effectively chipping every single human being irrevocably, because that changes so many things. And I can see law enforcement going, oh, wow, this is fantastic. I can prove that this guy is the murderer or whatever. Yeah. I'm just not convinced that having that degree of being able to track people as though they're products in a department store or something.
Yeah.
I think there's downstream negativity that I haven't even thought about, and I will leave to the science fiction writers in their dystopian futures to come up with, and I'm sure they probably already have.
Right.
But go ahead.
The last thing I was going to say is, following on to your point is, the one big negative, which aligns with some of the things you're saying, is I'm always cautious putting all the eggs in one basket, because the problem is, I don't care how hardened and redundant you think that basket is. In the likely event that basket gets compromised, everything in the basket gets compromised. So there's the one thing of, if everything's in one place, everybody's got one place to attack. And when that thing gets breached, then you have a serious exposure.
I'm not even worried about a breach. I don't care whose hands it's in. I don't want any government anywhere having that level of detailed knowledge about me, because what it tends to do is, over time, it just erodes this concept of the government exists to serve the citizens, to we are subjects of the government. And that's the most optimistic scenario of all of this. I certainly don't want to be subjects of Sam Altman. That would be a real issue. So,
well, if you look at the way China does it, it feels very dystopian, right? The fact that they've got cameras on every single corner, everywhere. You definitely feel like you can't go to the bathroom without the government knowing about it, and there's something that does not feel good about that.
Yeah, and maybe that's just because we're Americans, and that's a longer conversation, because Europeans are willing to accept a universal government ID as just part of what they do. A side note, I met a young European girl several years ago, and she was trying to understand why this whole notion of voter ID was such a big deal. And I said, take out your wallet, show me your ID. She was German. She took out her wallet. She showed me her ID. I said, you want to see my IDs? And I threw them across the bed. And it was like driver's license, global entry, everything that I used. And I said, Here is the problem. In order to do a voter ID, We would need that. And I pointed to what she had. And by the way, in Europe, the rules are if you move, you have to update the local government within a certain number of weeks or face massive fines.
Right.
So they always know who you are and where you are. And I said, if we move to that, that would replace everything that I have here. But the very same people that want voter ID do not want federal ID. So it's an impasse. And she went, oh gosh, this country is weirder than I thought. and that I would have to agree with. So we could say it's just because we're American. Anyway, we're running a little long. So Jerry, just to wrap up, what would you recommend that folks do in light of this rather worrisome development?
Well, I think it's important to understand what is going on with these types of technologies, both in terms of just from a multi-factor authentication, what's a better way of authentication. But I certainly wouldn't use I wouldn't agree to pay for scans without any guarantees of making sure that I've maintained my privacy. You have to have those guarantees there.
And I would say sort of above and beyond that, if any U.S. companies decide they want to do something like that within the U.S., I think I would, as an employee of such a company, immediately file a lawsuit on whatever grounds I could discover, because I would want to push this all the way through to see whether we in the United States think this should be legal or not. Because right now it's not legal to take, for example, DNA from someone who doesn't want to give it to you. Why should it be legal to take a retinal scan?
Right.
So anyway, very, very interesting, Jerry. Yet another reason to despise Sam Altman even more than I already do, and I'm not shy about saying it.
He's got beautiful brunette hair. I don't know what you're talking about.
So do I. Oh, wait, not anymore.
Yeah, me too.
So with that, folks, thank you very much for listening and watching. That's